I'm going to talk about travel photography. In my work, I am a professional travel photographer. I do that full time. And the title said how to not scare your mom while doing that, while you also solo travel. So I thought I have to show you my mom as well. Say hi to my mom. She's here. There you go. Hi, Mom, who ironically hates traveling. Isn't that crazy? So I attract people like that in my life. My husband is here somewhere as well, back there. Yeah, there he is. He hates traveling as well. I don't know how I get to, live with these people. Sometimes I do bring her along on a trip. That was in Austria. She wouldn't, touch foot on a plane, but I can bring her to a lake in Austria. She will go like on a little hike with me. That's as far as it gets. But she loves moving, so she put me in this little suitcase, and we moved a lot when I was a little kid. So I do blame her that she instilled a little bit of wanderlust in me. So that's her fault. Yeah, so that's me today, a little older. This is how I started with photography. So Instagram is still my main platform, and I'm going to show you the very beginning. How it all started is like this. So I took photos with a phone. I have no proper training. I'm not a photographer by training. I didn't study photography. I took photos with my little iPhone when I signed up on Instagram in 2011. So that was right at the beginning of Instagram. It had just been published at the end of 2010. So I was one of the first users, at least in Austria. I was probably among the first users. And I took photos like a crazy person. Every weekend, every evening after the office hours, I worked full-time in an office. I was just out and about taking photos in my hometown in Vienna. Not traveling, because again, I worked full-time in an office job, so there was not so much traveling. Fast forward, how it went. This is Ireland. I had to pull out that image. My first trip in 2016 was not a tourism board trip. It was a trip for Omega, the watchmaker brand. So I recognized early on that brands, these big, large corporations, they took on influencer marketing before it was even a term in social media, earlier than the tourism boards, in my experience. But that same year, I also quit my job. So it did work quite well. And this is how it's going now. One of the best photos I have of me. So definitely a professional portrait of myself. This is how it looks these days. So I'm trying to work more out of Africa. It's a passion that happened kind of by chance, so I'm doing more and more wildlife safari work. It's not my camera, by the way. I think the camouflage is not so much my look, but I borrowed that lens. I do have a few like these, but not that particular one. So how did I get here? I started as a self-taught photographer. So everything I'd learned from the internet, from YouTube tutorials, from other photographers. In the beginning, Instagram was my only platform. So that's the only thing I used to promote my work, to showcase my portfolio. And I built the business next to my office job. So it took me 3 years. I put down these 3 years, 2013 to 16, because 2013 I got my first paid job from my Instagram. I have to say, as a little subtext, I was suggested, so I was a featured user on Instagram, so I had about 200,000 followers already back then, very early on, which helped. Still helps today, unfortunately. I have to say how much I despise follower counting and all of this. It still helped put some credibility to my work. I don't think my photos were good back then, because it was still with my phone. I didn't have a camera at that stage, but I shot a car commercial. Can you believe it? They gave me a car for a full week. They paid me. It was actually a British marketing agency. And they paid me, I think back then, like £1,000 or £2,000, something like that. And I was still employed in my office job. That's about what I made in a month. I was like, okay, that could work. Let's do that. In the end, it was a campaign with, I think, 7 photographers, and 6 of them had proper cameras, and I was the only one that shot the car with the phone. So on the website, I have to say, it looked a little bit bad for me. The results were not so professional. So I did pick up a camera eventually. And I just started slowly learning by doing, more or less, and I'm still learning. That phase is not over. I'm still learning new techniques, new things on my camera, on editing. So yeah, 3 years in 2016, I decided, okay, I might as well try and reduce my job to part-time. So you see, I'm one of those people who are maybe taking things a bit slower. I need some safety. I still wanted my regular income. And I was like, let's try. Let's see if I get more hours for my gig next to my office job, if I can grow it, if I can scale it, if I can make more revenue. And it worked. So it was only 6 months later that I quit my job in 2016. And then I had 1 or 2 fixed clients, so I knew there was some monthly revenue coming in and supporting at least my rent. And then only later I did launch my own travel blog, so that was 2017. So until then, only Instagram. Then I went to these travel shows like ITB in Germany, for example. And then only in 2022, I commissioned like a proper graphic designer and a web designer to build a photography website. So I have now, next to my travel blog, I have a photography website with my proper photography portfolio, mostly because I want to grow that side of my business. So I do the travel blogging, but I also do commissioned photography jobs. And that side I want to grow more. And yeah, LinkedIn and Pinterest I use as the 2 extra platforms on top of Instagram, just to be sure if Instagram dies, we never know. Good to have something else. What are the goals for today for you guys? So you get some insights into my work as a travel photographer, how I shoot and travel, sometimes solo, I have to say that. Sometimes I have to drag my poor husband along, even if he's reluctantly traveling with me. And you can ask me anything. We have to see how we fared with time, but you can just raise your hand or ask in between as well, or hopefully in the end we'll have some minutes. And as Michael said, I'll be here the whole day, so you can catch me around as well. So how do I choose my tourism partners? I have 3 core topics: nature and wildlife conservation, female empowerment, and then responsible and ethical tourism. So that's something that I didn't have in the beginning. That has evolved over the years. In the beginning, I started with, basically every tourism job I could get my hands on. I did city trips. I never did a family trip, I have to say. I don't have kids, so that wouldn't work, but I did things that I wouldn't do anymore today. So I learned what kind of niches I find interesting and what appeal to me, and I try to pursue these jobs now. And then something with novelty and obviously with a visual impact, something that I can actually photograph. You don't know how often tourism boards want you to convey stories that are not working visually. So I have to go back and forth with these partners and tell them, okay, this is something that could work on a visual scale. Like, how could I photograph that story? Here are some of my recent projects. I do very classic stuff. Atout France, I think they're here today, so I work with the tourism board. They have an office in Austria, so I do it for the Austrian Atout France tourism board. Regular, press trip, where they have a set of output that they want from me. So that is based on my travel blog and my social media. German National Tourism Board, the same. Very much a travel blogging job. Magical Kenya as well, so they commissioned me when they launched a new Instagram account. And then I do things like for WWF, I traveled to Tunisia to photograph women in artisanal fisheries. So very, very specific niche project, but that's not where I make my money off. You guys can imagine a nonprofit like WWF, I think they paid me $100 per day. That's nice, but that's not going to pay my rent over the long term. But I do these jobs because they're really interesting to me. I really like the topics, and they're good for my portfolio as well. So it's a win-win. And then I do just classic photo production. So that's something, again, that you could, hey, show hands, who's a travel media here? I didn't even ask in the beginning. Who is photographer, blogger, travel media in general? And the other one are travel trade, I suppose, hence. Oh, just 2? Okay, so I suppose most of you are media, that makes sense. So this is something that you could build as like a side project if you were into photography or videography or content creation. You do it for your partners, so not for your own channels, but for the companies that you work for. Like Luxury Collection, that's a hotel brand of Marriott, so I did productions in 3 of their properties around Europe. And then what I do in my hometown in Vienna is I have a few clients, hotel clients that I work with. Almanac is one of those. So I did 1 photo production for them, and now they're commissioning me with everything. So we did the Christmas photos, we did the Valentine's photos, everything. So it's a regular job for me when I'm at home, which is good, because I don't get to work so much in Vienna. And I do live in Vienna, so I'm there about half the year. So it's good to have some local clients as well for me. How do I shoot? I do use a camera by now, a mirrorless one though, so I don't have any DSLRs anymore. It is getting a little bit technical now. I'm not going to make it too crazy, but so you have an idea of how I shoot. Mostly handheld, rarely with a tripod. So I do not carry a tripod around because I'm not intrigued by the look of it as well. So this is just a creative choice. If you love landscape photography and you want, these washed out surfaces of the water, you do need a tripod. But I don't like that. I like being on the move, being flexible, so I don't use tripods unless I shoot hotel rooms. then I will use a tripod. 99% natural light only, just because I love the look of it, and to create it artificially with light setups is really complicated, because light setups can look really shitty if you don't do it well. So I prefer using natural light, and if I have to use artificial light, then for some minor scenes like food or so. I wouldn't light up a whole hotel room. I think it looks very trip advisory, which I don't like. And then, yeah, all manual settings. That was a promise I made myself when I picked up that first camera, like manual. I just have to do it. I know it was hard in the beginning, but it taught me so much. And here's an example. So just how did I shoot this photo? It's on a Nikon Z7 II, so that's the mirrorless camera. And then I have a long tele lens, 100 to 400 mil. You can imagine us sitting in a car on the other side of the river. So we were not straight ahead of that lion. We were a few hundred meters back. That's why I had the full zoom out. So it was on 400 millimeter. f4.5 to 5.6 is as wide as the aperture goes on that lens. So the wider it is, the more light you'll get in. 5.6 is what I used because it was already open on 400 mil. 1/400th of a second is risking it without a tripod, especially on that focal length with such a long lens. What helps is in these safari vehicles, they have these bean bags, so you can stabilize your camera a little bit. So that is pushing it, but these cameras have really good stabilization these days, which helps with that as well. And then ISO 640 is not an issue at all. Talking about AI, there's a tool called denoise in Lightroom. So you can denoise, you can use ISO up to 10,000 sometimes, and you can even make these photos work still time. But what is more important than the settings is the edit. So this is how the photo came out of the camera. And this is what I did with it. And then I have to say, I'm not a crazy editor. I don't use Photoshop at all. I edit only in Lightroom. But it's more about the creative choice. It's what you want to highlight. So you see everything is lit up here. The whole noisy background, the water, it's a lot. It takes away or it distracts from what you want to show. And you really want to show the face of that lion. That's the key, that's the highlight. So what I did is I darkened everything around it. Again, with AI in Lightroom, you can push with a button and say select subject. Lightroom will detect that lion. And then you inverse it, which means the whole background is selected, and then you just darken it. And away it goes. I did some little edits as well where I had one side of the face lit up more than the other, which makes it even more intriguing. But most of it is done quite quickly in Lightroom. This is my setup. So by now I have 3 cameras. I have the Z8. It's the follow-up model from the Z7 II. Z6 II and Z6 is like my backup camera, was the first one I had. And then I have these interchangeable lenses. As you can see, I use mostly zoom lenses, just because for travel, it means carrying less lenses, having more versatility with less equipment. And then if I go on safaris, I usually rent something, so I don't have these super long tele lenses myself. I might buy one at some point. I only own the 70-200, and I do have this 2x converter, so it's getting stretched up to 400 mil, but I'm gonna buy maybe one of those other 2 lenses as well. And then maybe what's important is I always carry 2 cameras with me, 2 bodies with 2 different lenses on it, just because you have this scene, for example, this hyena. One shot you want to take with the whole landscape around it, show kind of the scenery, and then you want to do another one of the face of the hyena. And you have 10 seconds while it crosses that road. So you better be quick, and that means you cannot change lenses in the car and be like fumbling around. You need the 2 bodies ready, be like one here, one there, and then you got it. I have 13 minutes left. I want to show you some of my Africa work, just because I'm super passionate about it, and I think it's important for you guys to find something that you are really passionate about. So that's the only thing that works. I still don't make a lot of money with Africa, I have to tell you. The tourism boards there, none of them are here. Surprise. So Austria is an even smaller market than Ireland, less important for safaris, for Africa travel. So it's really not an easy niche to break into. But for me, there's no way around it. I cannot do anything else. I do a lot of other stuff. You saw Tour France, Germany Tourism Board, etc. I do these projects where I have nature and wildlife focus somehow incorporated into them, but I want to pursue more in Africa, even though it might be commercially not the wisest decision. But I quote my tax advisor in year 3 or 4. He told me, Marion, I'm so sorry, less revenue this year. I'm sorry, your business is not going well. And I told him, Paul, this was the best year of my business ever. I did so many projects I love. It doesn't matter that I made less revenue. It really doesn't matter to me. I pursue what I am passionate about. So Namibia is where it all started in 2018. I'm just going to be here for a minute. So a few photos, just so you have a bit of Africa love for that day today. I just fell in love with the wildlife, the scenery, this living in a lodge. You're surrounded by these sounds, the cicadas, the smells, the hyenas calling at night. It was a private game reserve. They had everything, so very easy photo access there. We met the San peoples, the local tribes there in that region of Namibia, and on these roads. And that's why I say we, because, you know, I was commissioned to talk about solo travel. I didn't go there alone. These roads, in this car, I wouldn't dare. So, but that's me, right? I told you I need a bit more safety. We had, of course, we had a flat tire. I think there's flat tire guarantee in Namibia if you drive on these gravel roads. There's no cell phone reception for hours on end. You drive this road straight through whole of Namibia, 8 hours, no other car, no other human being. I wouldn't dare to do that alone. But there's enough women who do that. So there's people like Charlene, I'm following her like a French girl. She's overlanding all of Africa alone in her Land Rover. So I'm not as adventurous. So how do I not scare my mom? I keep things a bit more realistic. And I don't tell her everything I do as well. But I do love this, for example. I love sleeping just under a mosquito net. And this is a country, this is Zambia. There's leopards out there. There's lions, there's hippos, there's rhinos, there's everything out there. And you just sleep there with your little mosquito net. What helps? There's a little ranger down there sleeping a kilometer or so away of you with a rifle. So you are protected. That helps. I don't know what my mom would say about that, I have to be honest, but for peace of mind, that helps. And you wouldn't be allowed to sleep there without a ranger around. This is how it looks from the outside. So some of them are elevated platforms so that not every animal can access it, but it's not always like this. And then these are the toilets. So that's as adventurous as it gets. Bucket showers. Who of you had a bucket shower before? Yeah, yes, good on you. So you know the process, right? You have to order it 30 minutes ahead, tell them please make some fire, cook some water. They bring it up, they fill your bucket, and then you take a nice hot shower under the trees, under the canopy. It's brilliant. And this is the reality of behind the scenes. Some of those camps are super luxurious, don't get me wrong. You have plunge pools and AC, but some of those camps are like this. They don't have electricity, they have some solar panels. So you go to that charging station, basically a box with some cables, and then you go there at night and you charge your phone, your laptop, your camera batteries. So one tip, bring enough spare batteries. Very important, because sometimes there might be cloud cover for a few days and then the solar power will decrease and they'll have some things that are more important like the torches, etc., and you don't get to charge. Yeah, but this, like sleeping out in these tents is just the most amazing experience. You have all the animals passing by at night. The first night, you're not going to sleep at all because you're going to be awake every 5 minutes. Be like, what was that? What was that? Was it a hyena? Is there a lion next to the tent? And it might happen. All of those might pass by once in a while.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, of course.
The light in this is really striking, and all the Africa ones. Like, is that a challenge when you're photographing as well?
It looks stunning, but
it is incredibly important. So if I do jobs, commissions, I tell the clients when I want to shoot. I want to shoot at sunrise, no matter if it's June, and if it's at 4 a.m., I'll be there. Client can sleep, it's fine. I'm good with doing it alone. I will not shoot at bright daylight at noon. So I will do interviews, I will do other stuff, interior work at noon, and then I'll go out again in later afternoon. So that's really important. I mean, what you see here obviously are my photos, the best of. There's days when it's not like that, right? And I still have to shoot and make it work. And this is where photography becomes more professional, if you can make it work in any condition, any circumstance. So if you have to shoot at noon, you know where to go with your client or how to block the light, etc., coming from above. So, but it's nicer, easier with good light. And yeah, good subjects. Helps as well, right? Nice landscapes, nice animals is a little bonus. Yeah, so 2018, I told you Namibia was my first Africa trip, or sub-Saharan Africa trip, and then I decided the next year go to Botswana, and I made a pact with myself to go every year after that trip. You all know what happened 2020. Let's not talk about this, but 2019, I made it, and I wanted to show you this part of Botswana. Traffic. A lot of traffic. Stuck in traffic all day. So that's the famous Makadi Kadi salt pen. Again, traveling solo, but at this time maybe with a group. So you have a guide there, someone who drives you out there and who takes you out on the quads. 2 minutes left. Oh my God, okay. 5, okay, good. Thank you, Michael. So yeah, you drive on these quads out on the salt pen. There's no living soul inside, no animal, no insect even, no wildlife, nothing.
Wow.
Crazy, insane.
Do you want a drone as well?
Yes, drone photo that was, and here, that's where we slept. That's it. It's on the ground, it's a mattress, it's open, there's nothing there. You don't have to be afraid, there's not even mosquitoes. Nothing lives there, not even any plants, so there's also no insect life, because they have nothing to feed on. It only works in the dry season. In the wet season, this is flooded, and then there's flamingos. I want to return in the wet season one day, but this is the dry season. This is the bathroom, right? That's all you get back there. You do that for one night. You could technically camp out for a week. One night is fine for me. Then I go back to like a proper shower. But this is worth it. The Milky Way, I have never seen anything like this. Again, I didn't carry a tripod, so what I did is I had one of those camping stools and I put my camera on there. It was a very professional setup, but the result worked anyhow. So if you know how to work your camera, your settings, you can get that also without a tripod. That's the loo, yeah? That's where we did business. Yeah, I told you how 2020 went, so a bit of a different experience, no traveling, got my wisdom teeth removed, had other stuff done. And then 2021, I went to Kenya. And all these trips that I showed you now have been collaborations where I got some, parts that were invited by a hotel or a lodge, but the rest I paid myself. National park fees, the flights, etc., etc. I did that to build my portfolio. Let's see, it was a business investment, a very smart business investment. But yeah, it would take a few years for me to be recognized with my Africa work, to get a few contacts in there, etc. Following that 2021 trip, Kenya, I told you, Magical Kenya was one of my clients. The tourism board contacted me and asked me if I wanted to work with them because they were launching a new German-speaking Instagram channel. And they needed photos for that. They needed someone to kick it off, do a takeover. So they sent me to Kenya for 10 amazing days. And that was not paid well, but it was my first paid job in Africa. I was like, check, check, yes, it's happening. Rwanda 2022, I'm not going to talk too much about it. If someone wants to know why I went there, I did a fundraiser called Prince for Wildlife, where we raised $2 million for wildlife conservation. That was during COVID. And this is the nonprofit that the money went to, and they sent me to Rwanda after to see how the projects were incorporated. Incredible trip. And then I went to Zambia last year with a friend. I took a friend who has never been to Africa before. And when I did that trip with her, I realized, okay, I want to bring other people. That's happening. So this year I'm doing my first group trip, taking 10 people to Zambia with me. That's going to be my biggest challenge. I've never done this before, so we'll see how I work as a guide. Safari guide, I'm not. Yeah, he's not coming, right? He's like, finally. He has been asking, like, is there a spot left? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, too late, you missed out. Yeah, exactly, I should charge him the full rate, actually. And then I went to Zimbabwe, where Michael and I went together in November last year. An amazing trip again, where I was invited for a conference with United Nations, and I extended the trip and just stayed a bit longer to work on my portfolio. So all in all, that is my takeaway. My journey is only beginning. I'm doing this in 7 years full time, right? But I'm still changing, evolving, and that is something that I want you guys to know. You're looking at me, maybe Michael invited me as this, how did you call me? Experienced photographer, inspirational, something. I'm just like you guys, right? I'm on this journey, I'm still learning, I'm still adapting, I'm rebranding. It's never ending, and I hope I give you some ideas and inspirations for you guys to follow your own journey and be, whatever you do, find your own passion and pursue that, be it photography or not, be it AI-powered photography or not, with a tripod or not. I don't judge. And this is where you find me. If you have any questions, please feel free. I can also send you the presentation if you want. It's not as informative, it's more inspirational photography, but gladly let me know if you need something.
That was great.
I think inspirational.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, Marion is here for the whole day, so you're welcome to chat to her at any time. It's 2 minutes to. A lot of you have appointments at 11 and 2 minutes.